Money sitting still does not sack the quarterback. It does not protect Brock Purdy. It does not push anybody around in January. But when the 49ers suddenly move to the top of the NFL in cap space after the Trent Williams deal, the entire conversation changes. Santa Clara has oxygen now, it has options, and it has real responsibility. Today we've got cap space putting pressure on the front office, a heated wide receiver battle, a rare defensive opportunity, and another veteran name floating around the rotation. Subscribe, because this roster is still very much alive. Now look at the beautiful, dangerous irony of this whole situation. For months, every conversation about San Francisco adding help kept running into the same wall: money. There was always that feeling that the window was still open, but the margin was tight, the math was uncomfortable, and every move had to be handled with almost brutal discipline. But the Trent Williams deal changes the table in a way that forces everybody to rethink where this franchise actually stands. Because we are not talking about some tiny savings buried in the fine print. After the extension, the 49ers are sitting at the top of the NFL in available salary cap space. The exact number moves a little depending on where you look. SpotTrack has San Francisco at $69.9 million. Over the cap has them at $71.3 million. Even if you use the lower number, the message is still loud. This team is ahead of the Tennessee Titans, who are sitting around $63 million. That puts Santa Clara in a rare position for a team that still sees itself as a contender. Expensive elite talent at the top of the roster, and real breathing room to make a move. And Trent's name needs to be treated with respect here. His 2026 cap hit dropped from $46.3 million to $20 million. That is not just cleaning up one line on a spreadsheet. That is keeping Brock Purdy's most important protector in the building, protecting stability on the left side of the offensive line, and giving the front office fewer excuses when the right opportunity appears. Around $10.5 million is expected to go toward the team's 8 draft picks, so part of that money already has a job. And yes, it also makes sense to believe the franchise may roll over a strong chunk into 2027, because serious teams do not burn tomorrow just to look aggressive in May. But that is exactly where the pressure lives. Flexibility is not a trophy. Cap space does not win third down. If the right move shows up, whether it is in the trenches, on defense, for depth, or to protect the quarterback, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan now have a lot less room to say their hands were tied. Brock Purdy carries the team's biggest 2026 cap hit at $23.7 million. Nick Bosa is right behind him at $23 million. Trent is at $20 million. Fred Warner is at $17.9 million. That core is still heavy, still respected, still demanding action. To me, the emotional read is pretty simple. The 49ers bought more than space, they bought obligation. When a Super Bowl window is still pulsing, every available dollar turns into a question. And the question in Santa Clara now is not whether the flexibility exists. It does. The question is who takes that flexibility and turns it into an advantage before another contender beats them to it. There are roster battles that do not scream across the headlines, but they can decide what a season becomes. And the 49ers wide receiver room is sitting right in that exact spot. Deep enough to get you excited. Crowded enough to hurt somebody familiar when it is time to trim the roster down to 53. This is not only about picking names, this is about deciding what kind of offense Kyle Shanahan wants to protect going forward. Dazon Stribling arriving with the team's top draft pick already tells you San Francisco did not treat the position like some side note. Alongside him, Mike Evans, Ricky Pearsall, and Christian Kirk look locked into the roster. After that, it gets ruthless. If the 49ers keep 6 receivers, there are 2 spots left in a battle that blends the past, promise, and immediate value. Demarcus Robinson, Jacob Cowing, and Jordan Watkins. And Junior Bergen is still hanging around as a wild card, especially because of what he could offer as a returner. Robinson's case is the most emotionally complicated one because he has a moment that matters. That wild card game against the Philadelphia Eagles, with 111 yards and a touchdown, does not just disappear from anyone's memory. In the playoffs, when the ball gets heavier, he showed up. That earns respect inside a building. But respect is not a lifetime guarantee. In the 2025 regular season, he had 276 yards and 1 touchdown. For a 31-year-old veteran with a $2.7 million cap hit in 2026, the uncomfortable question becomes this: is the shine from one January night worth more than the chance to develop 2 younger, cheaper players? Cowing and Watkins have not delivered real NFL volume yet, and nobody needs to pretend they have. Cowing flashed in the preseason, caught only 4 passes for 80 yards in 15 games in 2024, including a 41-yard deep shot from Brock Purdy against the Kansas City Chiefs, and then missed the entire 2025 season with a torn hamstring. Watkins also had his start slowed down early. He played only 4 games as a rookie after suffering a high ankle sprain in his first preseason game, right after showing real juice on a 50-yard catch from Mac Jones. So yes, there is risk here. But there is also a real reason for Shanahan to look at both of them and see more future than finished production. Speed, routability, lighter contracts, 4th-round draft capital invested in both players. If they stay healthy and earn trust in camp, the decision may stop being about who helped yesterday and start being about who can grow inside this offense tomorrow. A post-June 1 trade of Robinson would save $2.26 million and leave only $438,867 in dead money. Maybe it only brings back a 7th-round pick. But for a franchise that values late picks, that still matters. The point is tough, but this is contender football. Nostalgia cannot take a roster spot if the future is knocking on the door. Robinson has credit. Cowing and Watkins have urgency. And Shanahan will have to decide whether he trusts the reliable memory of a veteran or the nervous upside of 2 players who could still raise the ceiling of this group. Now the story changes texture, because this is not only about fighting for a roster spot. This is about looking at a player on the market and asking whether the 49ers still have the guts to chase impact when it appears outside the usual path. Christian Wilkins is available. He is still recovering from a foot injury, and his camp has already indicated he intends to play in 2026. Several teams, according to reports, are waiting for more medical clarity before pushing forward. And that kind of waiting game is exactly where a smart franchise can find an edge. Wilkins is not just some decorative name. When healthy, he changes the pocket from the inside. He drives guards back. He closes space. He disrupts the quarterback's timing. He changes the conversation for everybody around him. Now put that image next to Nick Bosa screaming off the edge. The opposing offense starts losing comfort fast. If they slide help toward Nick, the interior gets exposed. If they try to protect the middle, Bosa gets more life one-on-one. That is the kind of dilemma a January defense has to create. And why do the 49ers naturally belong in this conversation? Because money right now is not the same obstacle it used to be. After Trent Williams' new deal, San Francisco has one of the biggest financial cushions in the league, with more than $67 million in effective cap space based on the number mentioned in the report. That does not mean the front office should start buying names just to make social media happy. But it does mean they can study a smart move without wrecking the future. And for a player coming off an injury and a messy exit from the Raiders, with questions involving his physical recovery, contract guarantees, and an NFLPA grievance, the contract structure would be everything. If Wilkins wants a massive commitment, I do not want to see Santa Clara jumping into the dark. But if there is a short-term path, with protection, active game bonuses, performance incentives, and room for the team to breathe if the recovery does not respond, then this becomes a very serious conversation. Because the 49ers do not need him to arrive carrying the whole franchise on his back. They need him to be a weapon. A physical, experienced, explosive interior defender who can win enough reps to turn the rotation from good to dangerous. And I want to hear the fan base on this one. Would you make that call to Christian Wilkins right now? Or would you wait until the medical picture is completely clean? Because to me, a contender cannot live scared of every bet. Some bets are reckless, absolutely. But some are calculated. Some exist because a talented player became available without costing draft picks. If John Lynch wants to be aggressive without being careless, this is the kind of door that at least deserves a hand on the handle. And to finish this defensive map, here comes a name that may not hit the same way it did a few years ago, but still deserves respect. Jadeveon Clowney. At 33 years old, he does not need to be sold as a centerpiece. He does not need to be framed as the signing that changes the entire defense by himself. That is not the point. The point is remembering what happened when the 49ers pressure lost its starting defensive ends and the line stopped scaring people the same way. If you lived through that drop-off, you know it. Pass rush depth is not a luxury. It is competitive life insurance. Clowney still has enough burst to bother people. Last season, he had 8.5 sacks. 2 years before that, he had 9.5. For a player at this stage of his career, those numbers say something important. Maybe he is no longer the guy who dominates every snap. but he can still come in for specific situations and wreck an offensive call. And a situational pass rusher, when used the right way, is worth way more than a cold spreadsheet makes it look. Picture the role without exaggerating it. He is not coming in to take the spotlight from Nick Bosa. He is not coming in to solve every problem. He comes in to give you strong snaps on either side of the line, preserve legs, create internal competition, and keep the defense from depending on a rotation that is too thin. In September, that sounds like a detail. In December, it becomes survival. In January, it can become a third down one because the opposing tackle is tired, the quarterback feels the edge closing, and the ball comes out half a second earlier than planned. The 49ers need to get back to being the team that makes opposing offenses uncomfortable. It is not just sacks, it is pressure, it is contact, it is pocket collapse. It is an opposing coordinator calling plays afraid to let his quarterback hold the ball. And Clowney, in the right role, can help with that. Especially if the price makes sense and the expectations are honest. Veteran rotational piece, pressure package, physical presence, energy to set the edge against the run when needed. The front office cannot look at 33 years old and end the conversation automatically. But it also cannot pretend age does not matter. The right answer is somewhere between those two reads. If the body responds, if the contract does not trap the future, and if the plan is to use him as a complement, this kind of signing fits a team that understands how violent a long season gets. After watching the pass rush disappear when bodies were missing, San Francisco does not have the right to treat depth like an administrative detail. At the end of the day, these four stories are saying the same thing from different angles. The 49ers are not in waiting mode. They have cap space. They have internal competition. They have a market opportunity. And they have clear reasons to strengthen the defensive rotation. Trent Williams opened the margin. The receiver battle will test trust and future upside. Christian Wilkins would be an impact bet if the health checks out. Clowney would bring experienced depth to a pass rush that cannot disappear again. Santa Clara needs to move like a team still aiming for February. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's track every move together.